Okay. Councillor Denise.
Just wanted to echo the comments in regards to that we are doing all the things that we can towards affordable housing in Auckland. And when someone touched their folders, I think that's exactly where things lie between zoning and working on provisions, increase in housing types. We are doing exactly what we can. It is a fact that more affordable cities have no problem with land supply and have capacity to grow outwards. So that 30% increase in the rural-urban boundary is heading towards the factual side of what actually makes affordability. I do have a question. So clearly I'm in favour of going with council staff's recommendations, but a question on the assertion by the panel that this is essentially a tax on supply of dwellings and its redistribution in effect. Where it says that it's not an appropriate method under the RMA, how solid is that assertion? Because it's sort of like the third time I've read the panel inferring that, you know, under the, there was references earlier to one of the provisions that we went through in the Building Act, that they were querying legitimacy. So how solid is that assertion?
So the only other place in New Zealand which has attempted to deal with the affordability issue has been Queenstown Lakes and Districts Council. They were very much looking at how they could increase the affordability for workers in the Queenstown area, because obviously as a tourist area there's a high demand for housing. That did go through the Environment Court, and the Environment Court did say that they could use a tool such as that, but politically the council changed between the time that they went to the Environment Court, and the current council has not decided to pursue that mechanism. But it was clear that there was some ability under the RMA to deal with this issue.
My last point, Mr Mayor, would be probably a good idea to leave this affordable housing provisions for where we actually need it, and Tamaki Redevelopment Company, and what's going on there in New Zealand's largest regeneration area is a prime example of where we need it.
I rest my case.
What about New Lynn?
Councillor Arthur.
Thank you, Your Worship. 6 years ago at the start of this council I said there's no such thing as an affordable house, and then we were talking about 350k per house.
Yep.
Now we're up to about 650, 750 supposedly affordable. That's what's happened over a 6-year period.
Yep.
I support the staff stand on this thing for the simple reason is this. You force a developer to put 2 or 3 or 5 houses at a special price. The lucky person is the one who's going to buy that particular property. Because when that property turns over next, it's going to be based on the market price of the houses around it.
That's right. Yeah, no,
that's what's going to happen. And who the hell are we, or anybody, under human rights can dictate to them you can't sell that house for more than that?
Exactly.
Yeah? These are the issues that one has to look at. And so the reality is you can't. And so we talked about affordable housing and essential services. Just do the numbers. If you were to buy a house today to rent, you're going to be paying $800, $900 to buy. And you've got to pay a mortgage. How much are you going to get per week out of your tenant to pay the mortgage? Well, you're going to dig deep in your own pocket to pay the mortgage. Right? That's where we are in the realities of the property market today. Politicians in Wellington don't want to increase the accommodation supplement because they say all we're doing is making landlords get fat. But someone's got to pay to be able to have these people out of cars who are working and living in cars today because they can't afford to pay the rent in the house. That's the reality we have today. And so I think we shouldn't talk about making the promise of affordable housing to people out there thinking it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. You need to ask yourself this question. Every large city in the world, every large city in the country in the world has the problem that we have here. Right now, 50% of the world's population is living in cities. And research is showing that it's going to climb to 75 to 80% over the next 30, 50 years. Auckland will have 50% of New Zealand living here. So the demand for housing hasn't even been reached yet. The problem sits right in front of us, it's going to continue to grow. Unless you get the situation where you build way out there, and then you've got to build the infrastructure out there, and the city will grow back in towards the city. Maybe you can do that. Unless you create an oversupply, prices are not going to come down.
That's right.
This is the situation you've got to really look hard at, and I have no answer to that. And so that's where I'm really concerned, that we turn around and we talk about all these ideas, but we're not taking reality into place to see how it can be developed, or how we can deliver it. And so when I look at the international standards and see what's happening there, and you end up with ghettos and slums around the edges of the big cities, because they have a lot of people coming in and we haven't developed the infrastructure for it. And we're talking about here hope. Now, Denise just mentioned about the Tamaki restoration, and maybe you can answer something that's been bothering me for some time. One, they were given 2,800 houses. Two, they were given $200 million, I believe, as part of the deal. I believe all they're returning back to the social housing is 2,800 houses. And what they're selling, the houses that they're building, 3 to one of those sections, is over 800,000 each. So I don't, from that, what I've heard and what I believe to be correct, there is no gain. We're just getting 2,800 back for what we gave them. We should be looking for double that if we're going to do something. But I don't see that anywhere, and I've written to the Minister's office and I haven't even got a reply on that question. And so these are the issues of reality that we have. You cannot force a developer to take a loss on something else, because someone's going to pay for that. It's either the other 10 houses are going to pay for it. But the worst situation is that, yes, I'm the lucky guy who's going to get it. I'm going to make a fortune in 6 months' time if I flock it over. And you can't control me. And you can't control anything about that. So unless you can come up with controls that are going to control that situation, it's a pipe dream. It ain't going to happen. So I just want to put that on the table, Your Worship, so that we look at the reality of the situation instead of dreaming about things or giving people hope that ain't going to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? That's what concerned me. And the fact is, our young people now understand Auckland is like the big cities of the world of New York or London or where people rent.
Yep.
You live in apartments and you rent for the rest of your life, because it ain't going to happen to you can't afford to buy it. And that's the situation we're in right now. And what controls all that? The price of land. The price of land is the determining factor on anything we do, governed by the high cost now of building. And then central government comes out with policies which doesn't help the situation, like the new health and safety stuff of what they got to do. They turned around and said, builders have to get the special consent to be a builder. We don't have enough. Some bright spark killed the apprenticeship scheme a few years ago, and now our young kids sit and watch other people from overseas come and do the job while they're on the dole. These are the realities that we got ourselves into, and these are the things we've got to seriously look at. And I think we've got to take the reality and the situation, we're going to live with that. But I think the things we're talking about doesn't make sense, and I support the staff. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Mike.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. If there's one theme that runs through the unitary plan, the proposed unitary plan, but especially this recommended unitary plan, it's not about sustainable management of natural and physical resources, as one would expect from a regional policy statement and district plan, which are instruments of the Resource Management Act. It's housing. Housing is the underlying theme all the way through what the unitary plan panel has recommended. And their approach is one of deregulating to make building houses more attractive, making more land available to enable on the basis of making more houses available. And they have, as one member remarked, created an oversupply of land for houses, and they're very proud of it. But what sort of economics is it when the focus is on supply and there's no focus at all on demand. In fact, the government which appointed the Unitary Plan panel has control over the panel, but also control over demand in that its policies mean there are 50,000 new people coming to Auckland every year. There's been no move by the government in any way to try and improve wages as previous governments would have done to make houses more affordable. So the whole basis of making houses more affordable is releasing more land. Once upon a time, when dealing with housing crises in New Zealand in the past, the government would step in and energetically build houses, and councils too. And if you look down in Freeman's Bay, there's a marvellous example of the City Council creating an affordable and yet attractive urban landscape for people. Councils did those sorts of things in those days, but not now. So we're totally reliant on this unitary plan. There have been remarks, usual remarks about the RUB and the MUL and the cost of housing. I recall when the Hobsonville area was taken out of the MUL, there was opportunity for a significant amount of house building, and that's still going on thanks to those decisions. There were meant to be 500 social houses in Hobsonville, but a NIMBY local MP stopped it.
Was it the MP?
A NIMBY local MP stopped it. So, Mr. Mayor, in terms of what we proposed in our unitary plan, we made a commitment. To affordable housing, and rather than going out and building it ourselves, as councils would have done, we took a regulatory approach in this plan to incentivise affordable houses. And I think, Mr. Mayor, that we need to stand fast, hold to what we promised in regard to affordable houses. We have an obligation to do that. I believe we have a moral obligation to do that. So I will certainly vote against the deletion of retaining affordable housing provisions. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Chris.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I encouraged by the direction that you've taking here, Mr. Mayor. I think this is one area there's high expectation of Aucklanders that we address the big issue of affordable housing in Auckland. This is only a small part of it. This is not the magic bullet solution, but it's another contributor to addressing affordability in housing. So, look, thank you for the direction. But of course, there's expectation of Aucklanders that not just we do it, but also the government addresses the affordability of housing in Auckland. But when you look at page 59 in the first volume, where this matter is addressed in full by the panel, the opposite is actually occurring. The government are actually instrumental in getting the IHP to withdraw on the retained affordable housing approach that we were putting forward, and not just one department of the government, but two departments, and almost their complete reliance is on the two submissions from Housing New Zealand and the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Enterprise, and Employment, I should say. It is their submissions that the IHP are hanging their hat on. There are other submissions from a company called Advanced Properties, which is not in the residential development sector. Fletcher's are there as well, saying no retained affordable housing. Todd Properties are the other one. Now, of course, if you're in the big business of building lots of houses, of course you want to maximise your bottom line. And so it just surprises me that those almost trade competitive submissions have been considered, and I thought trade competition was not to be considered by the IHP. I almost view those submissions from those housing developers to be in that category of trade competition. The panel has actually gone with the line, like the government has said in its submissions from its 2 ministries or departments, just supply more land, more capacity. Just simplistic responses like that. And the IHP has surprisingly responded, and it actually is outlined there. And they are recommending a doubling of the feasible enabled residential capacity.